The last sound I heard before I died was my fiancé's laughter, crackling through the baby monitor on my nightstand. I was 34 weeks pregnant, lying in our bed in the penthouse apartment I had bought with my own money, staring at the ceiling through a haze of pain. The contractions had started 2 hours ago, sharp, terrifying. Rond, I had called Marcus. He hadn't answered. I had called my sister Sabine, who lived 3 blocks away. She hadn't answered either. I had called 911, but the dispatcher said the ambulances were delayed. A citywide emergency. Something about a multi-car pileup on the expressway. She told me to stay calm and keep trying to reach someone who could drive me to the hospital. So I lay there alone as the pain built and built, and I listened to my fiancé's voice coming through the baby monitor, the one we had installed in the nursery, so we could hear our daughter when she arrived. But the monitor wasn't picking up sound from the nursery. IT was picking up sound from the guest house, where Marcus had been spending a lot of late nights working on his novel. He wasn't writing a novel. He was with Sabine, my twin sister, and they were talking about me. She's probably wondering where I am, Marcus said, his voice lazy and amused. I told her I had a deadline. She bought it completely. She's so trusting. It's almost sad. Almost, Sabine agreed, and I heard the clink of wine glasses. How much longer do we have to keep this up? I'm tired of pretending to be her best friend. Every time she hugs me, I want to scream. Just a few more weeks. Once the baby's born, we can finally move forward. The life insurance policy is ironclad, $5 million payable to me as her spouse. And once she's gone, I'll inherit her shares in the company. We'll have everything we ever wanted. Good, I'm sick of living in her shadow. She was always the successful one, the brilliant one, the one mom and dad bragged about. Dio, you know what it's like to be the inferior twin? To spend your whole life being compared to someone who's better than you at everything. You're not inferior, baby. You're the one I chose. She was just convenient, a stepping stone. You're the one I love. I love you too. Now, let's stop talking about her. She's ruining the mood. Their laughter faded as they moved away from the baby monitor's receiver. I lay in the dark, tears streaming down my cheeks, my hands pressed against my belly where my daughter was struggling to be born. I had loved Marcus. I had trusted Sabine. They were my whole world, my partner and my twin, the 2 people I thought would never betray me. And they were waiting for me to die. The contractions intensified. I screamed, but no one came. The pain was blinding, obliterating, a tidal wave that swept away everything except the terrible, primal urge to push that I pushed. I pushed for hours, alone in that dark room, while my fiancé and my sister toasted my death in the guest house. And when the sun finally rose, I had stopped pushing. I had stopped breathing. My daughter, born too early into a world that didn't want her, had stopped breathing too. We died together, my baby and I. And the last thing I heard, fading into the darkness, was the sound of Marcus and Sabine laughing. System initializing. Host detected, Elena Vance. Status, deceased. Karmic debt, catastrophic. Activating rebirth protocol, the Heiress Gambit. Warning, this timeline has been corrupted by malicious intent. You are granted one chance to return, not as yourself, but as the person your enemies most fear. Calculating optimal rebirth vessel, identified, Seraphina Sterling, heiress to the Sterling fortune, currently in a coma after an assassination attempt orchestrated by Marcus Hale. Her soul is departing. Yours will take its place. You will wake as Seraphina. You will inherit her wealth, her power, and her resources. And you will use them to destroy the people who murdered you and your unborn child. Do you accept? The question hung in the void. I thought about Marcus's laughter, Sabine's wine glass clinking, the cold, empty darkness of the bedroom where I had died alone. Yes, I whispered. I accept. The void shattered. Light exploded around me, and I opened my eyes to a room that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, silk drapes, fresh flowers on every surface. I was lying in a hospital bed, but it wasn't like any hospital I had ever seen. This was a private suite, palatial and serene, with a view of Central Park through floor-to-ceiling windows. A woman was sitting beside my bed. She was silver-haired, elegant, dressed in a Chanel suit. Her eyes were red from crying. When she saw my eyes open, she gasped. "Serafina, oh my God, Serafina, you're awake." The doctors said. "They said you might never." She burst into tears, clutching my hand. "I'm your grandmother, Margaret Sterling. I've been waiting for you, I've been praying for you. I never gave up, never." Her thoughts hit me immediately, raw, unfiltered, full of desperate love. Asterisk, she's alive. And why baby is alive, I don't care what the doctor said. I knew she would come back. I knew she would fight. She's the last of the Sterling bloodline, the only family I have left, and I will protect her with everything I have. Asterisk. The system whispered in my mind. Skill unlocked. Thought detection. You can now hear the surface thoughts of anyone within a 15-meter radius. I squeezed Margaret's hand. My voice came out raspy, but steady. "I'm here, grandmother. I'm not going anywhere." Margaret sobbed with relief, and I began to plan. The days that followed were a blur of recovery and discovery. I learned that Serafina Sterling was the sole heir to the Sterling fortune, an $80 billion empire spanning real estate, technology, and media. Her parents had died in a plane crash when she was 18. Her grandmother, Margaret, was the matriarch of the family, a legend in the business world who had built Sterling Global from a single department store into a global powerhouse. And 6 months ago, Serafina had been the victim of a hidden run that left her in a coma, a hidden run that, according to Margaret's investigators, had been orchestrated by Marcus Hale. Marcus. The same Marcus who had been my fiancé in my previous life. The same Marcus who had let me die in childbirth while he toasted my death with my sister. I end this world. He wasn't my fiancé. He was an ambitious mid-level executive at Sterling Global, a man with charm and good looks and a hunger for power. He had identified Serafina as a target, a young, sheltered heiress who could be manipulated into marriage, and when his scheme to romance her had failed, he had tried to eliminate her instead. He had failed, and now I was Serafina. I was the woman he had tried to kill, and I was going to make him pay. I spent 3 months recovering from the coma, rebuilding my strength with the help of Margaret's private medical team. The system accelerated my healing, pushing my body beyond its natural limits. By the time I was ready to leave the hospital, I was stronger than I had ever been in my previous life, physically, mentally, and strategically. The system had unlocked new skills: strategic mind, emotional amplification, and memory projection. I could outthink my enemies, manipulate their emotions, and display my memories as visual projections visible to anyone in the room. I learned everything I could about Serafina's life, her education, her interests, her relationships. Margaret was suspicious at first, noting small inconsistencies in my behavior, but I explained them away as the lingering effects of the coma. Over time, her suspicion faded, replaced by overwhelming gratitude that her granddaughter was alive. And then, when I was ready, I began my counterattack. The Sterling Foundation Gala was the most exclusive social event of the year, attended by 1,200 of the wealthiest and most influential people in New York. It was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, a Sterling property, in a ballroom that glittered with crystal and gold, and it was the perfect stage for what I was about to do. I arrived in a gown of midnight blue velvet, my hair swept up, my grandmother's sapphires at my throat. Margaret was on my arm, beaming with pride. The guests parted before us like the Red Sea. And there, standing near the bar with a glass of champagne and a practiced smile, was Marcus Hale. He looked exactly as I remembered him, tall, handsome, with the easy confidence of a man who had never been held accountable for anything. Beside him, her arm linked through his, was Sabine, MY's sister. The woman who had betrayed me in 2 timelines now, first as my twin, now as Serafina's former friend, who had been feeding Marcus information about the Sterling family's security. Marcus spotted me, and his face went through a series of micro-expressions: shock, then calculation, then the smooth mask of charmed. He walked toward me, his smile widening. "Serafina! My God, you look incredible. That I heard you were recovering, but I had no idea. You're absolutely radiant. This is a miracle." His thoughts, however, were less polished. Asterisk, how is she alive? The driver was supposed to finish the job. If she remembers anything, if she knows what I did, I'm finished. But no, she's smiling. She probably doesn't remember. Coma patients usually have amnesia. That I can still salvage this, that I can still get closer. I just need to turn on the charm. Same plan, different timeline, asterisk. I smiled. Thank you, Marcus. It's so good to see you. I've been thinking about you a lot during my recovery, about everything we meant to each other. His thoughts flickered with hope. Asterisk, she still wants me. Perfect! This is going to be easier than I thought. Asterisk. There's something I'd like to share with everyone tonight, I said, raising my voice so it carried across the ballroom. If you'll indulge me. The room quieted. Phones lifted. Journalists scribbled. I walked to the podium, my velvet gown sweeping behind me. Most of you know that I've been away for the past 6 months, recovering from a terrible accident, an accident that I now know was not an accident at all. IT was an assassination attempt, orchestrated by someone in this room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's smile froze. I have evidence, bank records, witness testimony, security footage that Marcus Heir, an executive at Sterling Global, paid a driver $200,000 to run me down. He was assisted by Sabine Vance, who infiltrated the Sterling family as my friend and fed him information about my schedule and security arrangements. That's a lie, Marcus shouted, his composure shattering. She's delusional. She's been in a coma. She doesn't know what she's saying. Sabine, tell them. But Sabine was backing away, her face white. Marcus, you said no one would ever find out. Shut up, Sabine. I'm not lying, Marcus. I pressed a button on my phone, and the massive screens behind the stage flickered to life. Bank statements, text messages, and a video of Marcus meeting with a driver in a parking garage. I'm also not the only person you've tried to kill. The screen shifted to a new image, a photograph of me, not as Serafina, but as Elena, my previous body, my previous life. In another timeline, I was Elena Vance, your fiancé. You let me die in childbirth while you drank champagne with my sister and toasted my death. You planned to collect a $5 million life insurance policy and inherit my shares in Vance Industries. You murdered me, Marcus. You murdered my unborn daughter. And you would have gotten away with it if the universe hadn't given me a second chance. I activated memory projection. The ballroom walls flickered, and the scene of my death played out in vivid, horrifying detail. The dark bedroom, the contractions, the baby monitor crackling with Marcus's laughter, the final, desperate push, the silence that followed. When the projection faded, the ballroom was utterly still. Marcus's face had gone the color of old bone. Sabine was sobbing, her hands pressed to her mouth. Marcus Heir and Sabine Vance, said a voice from the back of the room. Federal agents were walking through the crowd, led by the FBI director herself. You are both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Marcus lunged toward me, but 2 agents intercepted him. Serafina, Elena, whoever you are, please. I loved you. In the beginning, I really loved you. No, I said. You loved what I could give you. You never loved me. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life paying for what you did. They dragged him away, his screams fading into the chaos of the ballroom. Sabine stumbled after him, her designer dress torn, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. Margaret took my hand, her grip fierce and steady. Your parents would be proud of you. Both sets of them. Elena's parents. Serafina's parents. You've honored them all. Thank you, grandmother, for everything. There's someone else who wants to speak with you, Margaret said, gesturing toward the back of the ballroom. A man was standing near the doors. He was tall, dark-haired, with the quiet intensity of a scholar and the sharp eyes of a strategist. His name was Alexander Sterling Vance, a distant cousin of the Sterling family, a brilliant corporate lawyer who had been working with Margaret to investigate Marcus's crimes. We had met several times during my recovery, and each time I had felt a strange, unspoken connection. Serafina, he said, walking toward me. Or should I call you Elena? I've spent the past 3 months trying to understand what happened to you, the medical records, the psychological evaluations, the sheer, impossible mystery of who you are, and I've come to a conclusion. Which is that it doesn't matter. Whoever you were before, whoever you are now, I believe you. I believe what you showed us tonight, and I want to help you if you'll let me. I looked at him for a long moment. His eyes were steady. His expression was open. And for the first time since I had woken up in this new body, I felt something stir in my chest. Something fragile. Something that might, in time, become hope. Then let's get to work, I said. We have a company to rebuild, a conspiracy to dismantle, and a world to change. The aftermath was devastating for my enemies. Marcus Hale was convicted on multiple counts of attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence, combined with my memory projection testimony, was overwhelming. He was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Sabine Vance, who cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence, received 25 years. She would be eligible for parole when she was 63 years old. Sterling Global, freed from the rot that Marcus and Sabine had introduced, entered a new golden age. I took my place as chairwoman, with Margaret as my mentor and guide. Alexander became our general counsel, and we worked side by side to root out corruption, implement ethical reforms, and expand the company's philanthropic initiatives. We also fell in love, slowly, carefully, against both our better judgments. He understood that I carried the memories of 2 lives, 2 deaths, 2 worlds. He never asked me to be only one person. He loved the complexity of who I was. We were married 2 years after the trial, in a small ceremony at Margaret's estate in the Hudson Valley. The baby, my daughter, the one I had lost in my previous life, was not with me, and she never would be, but I carried her memory like a sacred flame, and in time, I became a mother again. A son named Adrian after Serafina's father, and a daughter named Eleanor after mine. I stand now on the balcony of our home, watching the sun set over the hills. Alexander is beside me. My children are playing in the garden below. My grandmother is inside, reading by the fire. The system is still with me, a quiet hum at the edge of my consciousness. IT tells me that my karmic debt has been collected, the scales balanced. But I know the truth. The work is never done. There are always more wrongs to right, more betrayals to avenge, more people who need someone to fight for them. I was a victim once. I was murdered by the man I loved, and I died listening to him laugh. But the universe gave me a second chance. I took it. I fought. And I won. I am Serafina Sterling. I am Elena Vance. I am the woman who refused to stay dead. And I am just getting started.